Welcome back to LeapTalk English, where real conversations help your English grow naturally. I'm Mary.
And I'm Albert. And Mary, I want to start today with something that sounds simple but really isn't.
I already have a feeling this is going to be very relatable.
It really is. Why is it so hard for people to just be honest with each other, especially in relationships?
Oh, okay. We are going straight into the deep end today.
No shallow water here.
And honestly, I think this is one of the most important conversations we could have because almost everyone has felt this. You're in a relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship, a family situation, and something is bothering you, but you don't say it.
You smile, you say everything is fine, and then you go home and replay the whole thing in your head for 3 hours.
At minimum 3 hours.
Sometimes 3 days.
And the frustrating part is, you knew what you wanted to say. You just didn't say it.
So today we're asking why? Why do people find honest communication so difficult? And what does it actually look like when we get it right?
We're exploring this in clear, natural B2 level English. So just relax, follow the conversation, and let your English grow as you listen.
And stay with us until the end for our word tour, where we explain the most useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
And before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell us, is honest communication something you find easy or difficult? There are no wrong answers. We really want to know. All right, let's get into it. So, Albert, I think the first thing worth understanding is this. Most people genuinely want to be honest. It's not that they enjoy hiding things.
Right. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, today I am going to be confusing and unclear with everyone I love.
That is not the plan.
Never the plan, but it still happens, constantly.
And I think the reason goes deeper than people realize, because honest communication isn't just about words, it's about feeling safe enough to use them.
And that word safe is really the heart of everything.
It is, because when you say something honest, something real, you are making yourself vulnerable. You are showing someone what you actually think, what you actually feel, what you actually need.
And that takes courage, because what if they react badly? What if they judge you? What if they use it against you?
And those fears are not irrational. A lot of people have been honest before, and it didn't go well.
They said how they felt and got dismissed, or they expressed a need and were made to feel like too much.
And so the brain learns. It says, the last time you were honest, it hurt. So this time, let's just keep quiet.
And that pattern repeats until keeping quiet becomes the default,
Until silence starts to feel safer than speaking.
which is a very understandable response, but also a very damaging one over time.
Because silence doesn't make the feeling go away, it just puts it somewhere else.
Somewhere it quietly builds up.
And then one day, over something small, it all comes out at once.
And suddenly you're having a very intense argument about dishes, but it was never really about the dishes.
It was never about the dishes. It was 6 months of unspoken feelings that finally ran out of room.
And the other person is genuinely confused because from their side, everything seemed fine.
Which brings us to another reason honest communication is hard. People assume.
Oh yes, the assumption problem.
We assume other people can read our feelings. We assume if someone really cared, they would just know.
They would see it on my face. They would sense the mood shift. They would just know.
But the reality is, most people are absorbed in their own internal world. They are not ignoring you. They simply don't know what they can't see.
And expecting someone to read your mind and then feeling hurt when they don't, that's a very painful cycle to be in.
For both people.
Completely. Because the person who expected to be understood feels invisible, and the person who had no idea feels accused of something they didn't know they did.
And both of them walk away feeling misunderstood, when a simple, honest conversation could have changed everything. And I think there's a third layer here that people don't always talk about, the fear of conflict.
Yes, a lot of people avoid honesty specifically because they are afraid of what comes after.
They think, if I say this, we will argue. If I say this, things will get uncomfortable. If I say this, something might change.
And change feels threatening, even when the current situation isn't working.
Because at least the current situation is familiar. You know how it feels. You know what to expect.
An uncomfortable familiar can feel safer than an uncertain better.
And that is such a human thing. We are creatures who crave predictability, even when predictability isn't serving us.
So, what actually helps? How do people start communicating more honestly, especially with people they care about?
I think the first thing is starting small. You don't have to begin with the biggest, most difficult conversation.
Right, you build the muscles slowly.
Exactly. You start by saying, actually, I didn't enjoy that movie. I would have preferred something quieter. Small, low stakes, but honest.
And every small, honest moment makes the next one a little easier.
Because you're proving to yourself and to the other person that honesty doesn't have to end badly.
And I think the second thing is learning how to say difficult things without making them an attack.
Yes, because there's a real difference between saying, you never listen to me, and saying, I've been feeling like I'm not being heard lately, and I really need to talk about it.
Same feeling, completely different delivery.
One puts the other person on the defensive immediately, the other invites them into a conversation,
And when people feel attacked, they stop listening, they start defending.
which means the honest thing you needed to say never actually lands.
So the goal isn't just to be honest. The goal is to be honest in a way that can actually be heard.
And that takes practice, real practice, but it changes everything.
And the third thing, and maybe the most important, is creating the kind of relationship where honesty feels safe in the first place.
Because honesty doesn't happen in a vacuum. It needs an environment. It needs a relationship where both people believe, I can say something real and I will not be punished for it.
And building that environment is a shared responsibility, not just one person's job.
Both people have to be willing to receive honesty, not just give it.
Because what happens when you respond to honesty matters just as much as the honesty itself.
If someone tells you something difficult and you respond with kindness and curiosity, they will come back and tell you more.
And if you respond with defensiveness or dismissal, they will learn not to try again.
And that is how emotional distance grows, slowly, quietly, one unheard moment at a time.
So I think the message of today is really this. Honest communication is not just a skill, it is an act of respect for yourself and for the other person.
It says, I trust you enough to tell you the truth, and I value us enough to have the harder conversation.
And that kind of trust, when it's built carefully and consistently, creates something really rare.
A relationship where both people actually feel known.
And that is one of the most beautiful things two people can give each other.
It really is. Okay, let's slow things down and go into our word tour.
Let's do it.
First word, vulnerable. When you are vulnerable, you are open to being hurt emotionally. You're showing your real feelings without hiding them.
For example, being honest with someone you love requires being vulnerable. Or, she felt vulnerable after sharing something so personal. Repeat after us. Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Next, default. A default is what someone does automatically without thinking, especially out of habit.
For example, staying silent had become his default response to conflict. Or, our default in uncomfortable situations is often to avoid them. Repeat. Default.
Default. Next, dismissed. If your feelings are dismissed, it means someone treated them as unimportant or ignored them.
For example, she stopped sharing her feelings after they were dismissed too many times. Or, feeling dismissed is one of the most painful experiences in any relationship. Repeat. Dismissed.
Dismissed. Next, a very useful phrase. Read your mind. To read someone's mind means to know what they are thinking or feeling without them telling you.
For example, I can't read your mind. You need to tell me what's bothering you. Or, expecting people to read your mind leads to a lot of unnecessary hurt. Repeat. Read your mind.
Read your mind.
Next, on the defensive. When someone is on the defensive, they feel attacked and start protecting themselves rather than listening.
For example, the way he said it immediately put her on the defensive. Or, when people feel criticized, they go on the defensive and stop hearing you. Repeat, on the defensive.
On the defensive.
Next, emotional distance. Emotional distance means a feeling of disconnection or coldness between two people in a relationship.
For example, years of unspoken feelings had created real emotional distance between them. Or, emotional distance grows slowly when honest communication is avoided. Repeat, emotional distance.
Emotional distance.
And finally, feel known. To feel known means to feel that another person truly understands who you are, your real thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
For example, she didn't just want to be loved, she wanted to feel known. Or, honest communication is what allows two people to truly feel known by each other. Repeat, feel known.
Feel known.
And those were today's word tour words and phrases.
Together, they capture everything we explored today: vulnerability, silence, honesty, and what it really means to be understood by someone you care about.
And remember, the words you learn here are not just for English. They are for life, for the conversations you've been waiting to have.
So, wherever you are today, be a little more honest with someone you trust. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real.
This is Albert.
And this is Mary. Thank you so much for listening to LeapTalk English. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye!